We are so happy to be joined by Congresswoman Jen Kiggans from Virginia's 2nd District. My name is Tim Parrish, by the way, and I have the pleasure of serving as the State Director for Americans for Prosperity, Virginia. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here. We're also joined by Senator Christine Newcraig from the Virginia State Senate, both Mayors Rick West from Chesapeake and Mayor Bobby Dyer from Virginia Beach, along with Vice Mayor Debbie Ritter, and we have a host of local activists from the AFP Tidewater activist community that we've built here, which, as you know, is one of the crown jewels of AFP, our grassroots activists that are a part of everything that we do. And so we're so glad to have them in studio with us today for this fireside chat with the Congresswoman. So we're going to jump right in. Obviously, the subject of the conversation is about the shutdown, all the great work that you're doing to sort of usher us through this point. So we have a mix of questions that came in, and folks will have some questions live here, but let's just jump right into how is your office continuing to serve constituents who need assistance with federal agencies and other groups during the shutdown, and what are some of those specific services that remain available?
Yeah, so thanks for asking, and thank you very much for being here, and to all of our guests who are with us today. But we're in day 23 of this federal government shutdown. It's been a frustrating time. We've seen the Senate vote 12 times, the Senate Democrats specifically, vote to keep the government closed. So we know that families are challenged these days. We know that so many of them are living paycheck to paycheck, especially in our military. We have a large military presence here in Virginia's 2nd District, large Navy presence. So I care about those guys. I want to make sure that they're getting their paychecks. A lot of federal workers as well, federal shipyard workers, federal law enforcement. We have even air traffic control. So many people here who are relying on those paychecks that are not coming. So it's been a frustrating time. My office is certainly starting to hear more from people who are having these issues and these challenges just financially. And my office is open. That's I think the bottom line message is I want people to know that my staff continues to work. My staff is also not getting a paycheck. They're federal employees as well. So here in Virginia Beach, and we have 3 offices. We have one in Virginia Beach, one on the Eastern Shore and Only, and then we have one in Suffolk. So there's 3, and they are all here every day. We also have a staff up in DC. That office is open as well. Those staff members continue to work without getting paid. And I've also requested that my pay be withheld during this time. If my staff is not getting paid and our federal workers, our military, their paychecks are threatened, then members of Congress shouldn't be paid either.
That's incredible. And you're here doing this. You're still engaging the public and still talking about these things, which is so critically important. So you are a naval veteran yourself, and you come from a Navy family. And so you represent, I would say, one of the largest Navy or military districts in the country. Given the significant military presence here in the 2nd District, you've got Naval Station Norfolk, Joint Base Langley Eustis. How are service members and their families specifically being affected by the shutdown? And what are you hearing from those service members?
Yeah, well, these are the people that I worry about their paychecks. Our junior enlisted, we know that they struggle just financially and paying their bills every month, taking care of their families, which is why we passed a historic pay raise for them last year. We continue to prioritize pay and compensation for our military, especially those junior enlisted guys. But I worry about their paychecks. That's why my bill, one of my cornerstone pieces of legislation was the Pay Our Troops Act. And this bill we've introduced 4 times since I've been in Congress. Every time there's talk about shutting the government down or talk about a continuing resolution, we will put that bill out there. Great bipartisan support on both sides of the aisle, and it simply just ensures that our military members will continue to get a paycheck, and it includes our Coast Guard men and women. We saw with the last government shutdown a few years ago that Coast Guard was not included, so we put the Coast Guard in this bill. We also put federal workers who work intimately, very closely with the military. We want them to get paid as well. Some of our civilians who have especially been in place a long time, really instrumental to our day-to-day military work. So that cornerstone bill, that Pay Our Troops bill, has been very important. Now, I've pushed on House leadership multiple times lately to please bring that bill to the floor. I know that with the last pay period, which was on the 15th, our military members get paid the 1st and the 15th.
That's right.
So the president and the administration did come up with some research and development funds that they were able to kind of move money around to make sure our military members did get paid, because we have not brought that bill to the floor for a vote. So I will continue to do my part. I think the longer this shutdown goes on and the longer that our military pay is at risk, that there's more of a chance for us to actually get a vote. Right now, we can't get to regular order in the House of Representatives because we're stalled in the Senate, because that continuing resolution rests with the Senate. And as you know, there's a filibuster in place in the Senate, so we need 60 votes.
That's right.
We only have 53 Republicans in the Senate. So they need to have 7 Democrats cross over, and they've had a max of 3 at one time that voted for it. But we need several more to kind of just take that common sense vote of extending a deadline to pass our budget, which was October 1st. And, the Senate did its vote on September 19th. So when I voted yes for that continuing resolution to keep the government open, that bill then went to the Senate, where it's been stalled. And now we're having all these other issues to deal with.
Yeah, and on that same line of thinking, and thank you for that, by the way, for taking that vote to keep the government open.
It's easy.
It's easy, exactly. What assistance specifically is your office providing for federal employees and contractors in the district that might be furloughed or working without pay? I mean, you mentioned these military workers. What assistance is coming out of your office?
Yeah, so we're still doing the same work that we've always done, the same benefits that we try to help our members get, our constituents get, in our military specifically, especially veteran benefits. That's been a real focus for us with our military district. But if people are having issues with veteran benefits or any type of liaison with any federal agency, we can help with the IRS. We can help get passports. We can do that pretty quickly, actually. But any type of federal agency that people feel like they are not getting a response from, and especially with this shutdown, there are a lot of offices that are closed, that are working with partial staff, that are not answering their hotlines or helpline numbers. Call our office. Again, you can go on kiggans.house.gov, or you can just Google Jen Kiggans in Congress, and our website comes up. And please reach out to us either at our local offices or our DC office. But our staff remains there. We can then put you in contact with specific agencies that can help. For the military members out there, we have a specific staff member who helps only with military family issues. She can connect you with some of the local resources or resources statewide or even on the federal level.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So shifting over a little bit, talking about some of the legislative action, some of the resolution to this end, and you mentioned that you have been in contact with House leadership, maybe even the president, about some potential paths forward. What timeline, maybe if you could just share what you think personally, a timeline do you anticipate for resolving this impasse that we find ourselves in?
I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you.
Exactly,
and again, we did our work in the House. We
That's
did
right.
it on September 19th, and that continuing resolution, which is a clean CR. It had no strings attached. This didn't have a lot of other policy proposals thrown in there. It was literally an extension of a timeline. And as you know, nothing happens fast in Washington, and very few things actually happen on time, I feel like. So we've done this before. We've given ourselves a continuing resolution. During the last administration, during the Biden administration, we voted 13 times for a continuing resolution to keep the government open. Bipartisan vote. No one had a problem. We actually listened to a lot of speeches from Democrats and Republicans talking about how bad it would be to shut the government down. But here we are now. Then the Republicans have the majority in the House and the Senate and the White House. So now we're in this political game of sorts where I feel like the Democrats on the other side of the aisle, they don't have a lot of tools. They're not in any majority anywhere. So we've resorted to just playing this game of holding the country hostage, which was what I would consider it to be, because all of those federal paychecks, all of those federal workers, all the shipyard workers, the military, I mean, you name it, their paychecks are threatened. And we've done so much good work on our side, including the One Big Beautiful Bill, Working Families Tax Plan, to make sure that people are feeling like they have more of their hard-earned money. We want people to feel like they are keeping that in their bank accounts. And instead, I've got the Democrats are now playing games with people's paychecks. So it's frustrating. It's wrong. When is it going to end? I think that's the million-dollar question. But the ball is in their court. And Senator Thune, who's the majority leader in the Senate, gives them an opportunity almost every day, if not every couple of days, to vote on this same clean CR bill. They continue to vote no every single time, and it's very interesting. So a few days ago, they took a vote for the Defense Appropriations Bill. They voted against that. They voted against our budget bill to fund our military. And partisan games is all I can call it. And today, actually, in the Senate, there is a bill that's very similar to my Pay Our Troops Act, which is Senator Johnson's bill. It will go to vote today. And this bill is to simply guarantee that the military will get paid if we continue this government shutdown. So I'm very curious to see if the Senate Democrats are going to step up, and they need 60 votes for that bill as well. And if they're going to pass that bill, or if we're going to continue to play these hyper-partisan games. It's not good for the country. It's not good for our military and our federal workers. It's just not good for families. So it's been a source of frustration. I certainly hope it ends very soon. I'd love to get back to regular order in Congress. Congress. It's been wonderful to have a little bit more time in the district. There's work to do here, and I like to hear from my constituents, the people I represent. But we certainly need to get back to Washington. There's a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. And it was interesting to see you talk about political games, and it was interesting to hear Senator Schumer say every day gets better. And it highlighted we did a lot of work on the ground here. We had our activists respond to that and say, no, every day is in fact not getting better for the average Virginian. So thank you so much for mentioning that.
You see them talk about using this as leverage.
Right.
Like they admit that it's a game. So there's no question here. And again, they don't have anything else. They are in the minority. Then they're in the minority for a reason. There was an election last November, and Americans weren't happy with the direction of the country. They weren't happy with the economy. They weren't happy with the border. They weren't happy with our lack of focus on national security. So we changed that. We had an election. That's how we do it here in America.
That's right.
So now we've been working hard since January to get the country back on the right track. We're making significant progress until we started playing this ridiculous game.
That's right. And you mentioned regular order, which is where we're going to transition to next. And I want to first thank you for your vote on the CR and keeping the government open, as well as your vote on the Working Families Tax Plan, which AFP has been very proud to support. And we've really invested in that, and you were one of the champions behind that. So thank you for that. You mentioned regular order. What does that look like? Will we ever get back to regular order and passing instead of the CRs, which we're grateful that we passed to keep the government open, but will we ever get to a place where we in fact have a budget that we can operate the government off of?
Well, again, I certainly hope so. I'm an optimist and glass half full person in general, but we have 12 appropriations bills and 9 more to go. So we've passed 3 until we hit that deadline that we are now had to pass the CR to get the other 9 done. So there's 12 appropriations bills for us to pass a budget. We pass a budget every year, different from Virginia, who does an every other year budget. Right. Also different from Virginia, they don't spend more than they take in. We have a balanced budget, so
constitutionally mandated,
kind of common sense.
Right.
It'd be great if Washington could adopt some of those things, but instead we're faced with this $37 trillion debt. So Republicans, who again are in the majority now, have been very focused on reducing this $37 trillion debt that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for my kids and grandkids, and it's been very frustrating. But we've tried very hard to put some reasonable, common sense, just tweaks on government programs that we know have a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse issues. We see the government spending money where it shouldn't be, even outside of our own country. So that's been our focus since day one. But will we pass a budget? Yes. I have great faith that the country will return to regular order, that Congress will go back to meeting and holding committee hearings and floor votes and debates and all the things that make our branches of government great. But it's going to take some time, and it's going to take the Democrats not playing games. And that's going to require people to communicate with them. I certainly encourage people to reach out to, especially our Virginia senators. Our 2 Virginia senators continue to vote to keep the government closed. And we can't do any other work. We can't have discussions about any other issues they'd like to talk about or debate or hold hearings about until we can get back to regular business. So it would be great if our Virginia senators would vote to open the government and get a few more of their colleagues as well. But the clock is ticking.
Absolutely. So just transitioning over, and we're going to then take some questions from our live audience and as well that came in. So, there's a lot of industry here in the 2nd District. Can you kind of unpack what some of the critical infrastructure that's being impacted by the shutdown and what steps you've taken? I know you have an excellent bill on shipbuilders. What steps have you taken to really kind of address the critical infrastructure that's being impacted in the district?
Yeah, a lot of defense industry here. Right. A lot of our economy just focuses around contributing to the military, active duty military, and shipyards that you mentioned. And we have the Pay Our Shipyards Act, which is very similar to the Pay Our Troops Act, which takes care of the federal shipyard workers, because we know we are in the middle of a shipbuilding crisis right now. Mm-hmm. I don't have the number of ships that I need to be able to stay competitive with countries like China that are racing past 400 in the size of their navies, and we hover right below 300. So it's been a frustrating time. We want to incentivize domestic manufacturing, especially on the shipbuilding side. Those skilled tradesmen and women that we bring in, that we work so hard to get in the door, I need them to have a paycheck. I need them to continue to work that they're doing. So that was one step that we took, was to introduce that bill. That bill has not had the opportunity to have a hearing or a floor vote yet, because we, again, can't get back to regular order. Right. But, You know, the continuing resolution in itself is not great for the defense industry. It's a continuation of last year's budget. So that's simply all it does. And if you remember, we're living under a CR from last year. We passed a 1-year CR. So that's why the importance of those 12 appropriations bills and getting those done in a timely fashion. We need to do that because there's some updating that needs to be done. There's some spending tweaks that we've put in place. I don't sit on the appropriations committee, but that committee has worked very hard to make sure we're spending in the right places, prioritizing national security. You know, the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Plan, we put $150 billion Defense Plus up in there.
Wow.
I want to make sure that money comes to Hampton Roads, first of all. There's so much, again, defense industry and manufacturing technology that's here. But when we can't pass any type of budget, that of course is going to stymie their ability to even think ahead, to plan for new projects, to put start the research and development that they need to do to be able to get the latest and greatest to the warfighter. So overall, just all of the things, the continuing resolution, not great. Shutting the government down, not great. We can do better than that for the defense industry that's here.
Absolutely. So we're going to transition over some questions, and we had some questions come in from the audience and some come in from our folks that are watching live. So we're going to go first to Mayor Dyer and Mayor West, two of our great mayors that are locally very supportive of all the work that we're doing here at AFP, but also very supportive of you. They want to know, how are you staying in communication with your constituents and the local elected officials, like many that we named here? And, you know, they ask about, are you holding town halls or forums, which we can answer that question, yes, because we're doing this fireside chat. But what are you doing specifically to sort of keep your constituents and the locally elected officials informed of all the great work your office is doing?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with those two. The mayor of Chesapeake and Virginia Beach are amazing, and we see them out and about at so many different events. So it's just keeping up and trying to be in the same place that they are, because we have a lot of constituents that will come out to hear from our mayors as well. But yes, to answer your question, we have held 2 town halls recently, teletown halls. And we're using teletown halls. The last one we did, we actually sent out a call to 50,000 people.
Wow.
And we had 7,000 people that stayed on the line to listen, for some for the whole hour. We did it for an hour, some for parts, but taking different questions from the audience. Yes, we can see people that call, but we certainly randomize what questions we take. We take, some people are in favor of what's going on, then some people have some concerns. So we take a wide variety of questions. But this allows us to communicate with so many more people than even having in-person events. And of course, some of the security concerns and whatnot that are going on these days. It's just a better platform for us to be able to communicate with people. We'll continue to do that as the shutdown goes on, if it continues to go on. And then we're here in the district. We've spent a lot of time at home, so we communicate still by going to good community events, all the usual things that we will get to, the barbecues, the oyster roast, the church events. It's fall, so there's a lot of time for community festivals and whatnot, so we try to get out and about. I find that that's the best way for me to meet people, even at the grocery store, when I get to talk to people that might recognize me, and just to hear from them. Last night I went to, I'm a member of American Legion Post 110 here in Virginia Beach. Shout out to them. And they hold their meetings at the VFW Hall off Bowen Parkway. And we got to go to the meeting and just talk to some of the veterans that were there for dinner and to socialize and to hear from them. A lot of them are small business owners. We heard from a man who got out of the military and opened a barbecue restaurant, and the impact of this government shutdown on his small business alone. He used to cater to parties on base for chief promotions and retirement parties for the military, and he said, you know, not only has the military been canceling a lot of these events, but people are just uncertain that they're going to get a paycheck. So even his lunchtime crowd that he used to see, and he's right out the back gate of Oceana, you know, he said his business went from $3,500 a month to $1,000 a month for just his, and he's a small business owner. Right. He's a retired veteran. So hearing from those people and hearing those stories one-on-one is very impactful. And I will take those stories back, not just to Washington, but we'll communicate via our town halls, or I also have a weekly newsletter that we always put out every beginning of every week. You can sign up on our website, kiggans.house.gov, and we work very hard to communicate the work that we are doing. We put all of our resources in there as well. We always highlight a Medal of Honor winner at the bottom of the newsletter. That's been very important to me, that we recognize people who have served our country. And so that's something I would encourage people to sign up for as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sign up for that newsletter because it's a lot of information that comes through there. Jennifer from Accomack, she says, looking ahead, what reforms or changes to the appropriations process do you believe are necessary to prevent future shutdowns?
Yeah, so it's been, as a newer person to Congress, although this is my second term, my third year there, I've been a little bit surprised at this budget process, again, coming from the State House where I served in the Senate for 3 years. And knowing what that looked like, that we were able to pass a budget every 2 years with some debate and amending. But it's been a source of frustration for me personally. You know, we take August usually as a district work period for Congress, so we're home. I sometimes wonder if we shouldn't stay a few extra days, maybe even a week, and just focus on the budget. Because when we are in D.C., we do a lot of bills and a lot of different subjects, different committees. It's very busy. But I'd like to take some time and just focus on the budget so that we don't run into this problem every October 1st, where we're all of a sudden at the end of the fiscal year, we haven't passed a budget, now we're in this continuing resolution vote, and now we can play games with this continuing resolution vote that's really impacting people's lives. So I'd like to take a little bit more time. We actually proposed doing a federal budget even every other year. We had the chairman of appropriations in one of my caucus groups a couple weeks ago. So just to talk about that, I think there's some discussion to be had. You know, is there a way we can tweak the system or tweak how we are doing things procedurally to maybe make this flow a little better? Because
right.
It's frustrating. And it's frustrating, again, I care about the defense industry, especially because of its impact on my district, but just personally and as a Navy veteran. And so, and a Navy mom, more important. So,
that's
you know,
right.
my kids inherit
and
this
Navy
military
wife.
and Navy
that's
wife.
Right. That's right.
So I think we could do a little bit better. And but we have to get back to regular. I can't have any of these discussions right now when we're in this shutdown period. But I think there's room for improvement for sure.
Right. And just a reminder, we could get back to regular order and have these conversations if the Senate would pass the CR that you have already supported. That's right.
Clean extension.
Exactly. Exactly. Last one, Thomas from Suffolk. Yeah, he says, how do you respond to constituents who are frustrated with Congress's inability to pass spending bills on time, and avoid shutdowns? And I think that this question is important because people forget sometimes that you're a congresswoman, but you're still a mom and you're out grocery shopping and you're out doing all the things that regular everyday American families are doing. Right. And so I'm sure you encounter frustrated constituents. What's your response to them?
I do. Well, I always thank them for talking to me personally, but there's 435 members of Congress and 100 in the House and 100 senators. So, you know, reach out to your senators as well. No matter what district you live in, reach out to your member of Congress. You can call our office, you can email, you can go on our websites, you can send a social media message. But my staff will report to me at the end of every day. I get a roster of who has called about what issues and a tally with how many people. And if sometimes they're a frequent caller, they'll tell me this person has called multiple times. So I look at that every evening before I go to bed so that I know what my constituents are calling about. Emails as well. We work very hard to make sure it's hard for me to personally respond to everybody, and I have staff that's helpful, but we try very hard to respond, and even we'll call back some people who have very unique concerns. So I encourage people to communicate with their member of Congress. If there's an event or a way to tune in to something like this where you can hear their representative talk, I think it's important to hear our voices, to hear our tone and our priorities and what's important to us, because I think that should drive hopefully your election if we have the privilege of keeping our job, and there's an election every year in Virginia, one important one coming up.
That's right.
So elections matter and elections have consequences. So I encourage people to get to know their member of Congress, whatever that looks like. But please communicate with our offices. It's so important for me to hear from you. In our newsletter as well, we have a survey question that we ask every week, and then we put the results in the next week's newsletter. I look at those for sure, but I also just listen. As a nurse practitioner, I spent a lot of my career listening to patients and families and caregivers. So I try to continue what I learned in nursing about how we listen to solve problems. So I encourage people to reach out anytime. If you see me out in town, would love to have a conversation, love to hear your concerns.
Well, that's fantastic. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for making yourself available. And thank you to our audience who's joined and folks online who have submitted questions that hopefully we were able to get to and answer. But we really appreciate your time, and we really appreciate all that you do to support not only AFP, but the constituents here in Virginia's 2nd Congressional District.
I appreciate your work as well.
Yes,
thank you
for
having me.